Okay, so I'm really nervous, so I knew I was going to be nervous, so I typed it out, so hopefully that helps me remember everything. To start, I just want to say that before today, I've only ever shared my testimony with my husband and a married couple that we were friends with. I felt too ashamed to share my testimony because of the embarrassment of growing up in a Christian home. Not only a Christian home, but a pastor's home, and not only a pastor's daughter, but a pastor's granddaughter. But I still allowed myself to be dragged so far away from God and into sin that it was embarrassing for me to talk about it. I had allowed Satan to convince me that I would be judged by people for who I was instead of who I am now. But seeing everyone's testimonies made me realize that it must have been very hard for some of them to come up and talk about the things that they had went through or the sins that they got involved in. So reluctantly, I decided to share mine if no one else took the 5th spot for tonight, and obviously that happened. And upon thinking forward to what I would testify about, I kept asking God if simply sharing what he brought me through would be enough of a testimony for people to hear, and I asked him to help me with my shame and let me freely share what he had done for me. And I found these verses in response. Luke 8:39, "Return to thine own house, and show how great things God hath done unto thee. And he went his way and published through the whole city how great things Jesus had done unto him." And 2 Timothy 1:8, "Be not thou therefore ashamed of the testimony of our Lord, nor of me his prisoner." I hate that. "Nor of me his prisoner, but be thou partaker of the afflictions of the gospel according to the power of God." So with this, I knew that it was right for me to finally share my testimony. So I'm going to start with my junior year, although there was stuff before that. But that's the year that things really got out of control for me. There's a backside. In October of 2018, which wasn't that long ago for me, as a silly teenage girl, I fell in love and absolutely thought the world of a boy that held my affections. If he said jump, I asked how high, you get the point. Well, that boy started telling me that I was too fat, which was hard for me because my previous boyfriend had said the same thing. Well, at the time, I was 5'8" and about 135 pounds, so I felt it was a healthy weight for myself. Well, because I thought the world of this boy, stupidly, I started starving myself. With starving myself came extreme hunger and cravings. Well, I was told by a lot of the kids at school that nicotine curbs the feeling of hunger, so I started vaping. After a while of vaping, I decided to start drinking little sips of alcohol here and there, which had not been my first drink. But with some of my friends after school, I decided to start doing that. I figured I'd already started nicotine, so I might as well try alcohol before I got caught too. Sometime during this, the boy and I broke up, of course, but I had already started the habit of addiction. I had a routine of little sips here and there going on for a while, and in February, I decided that I would get completely drunk with my best friends, who were both girls. I obviously knew it was wrong and risky, but figured since it was at my best friend's house, what could go wrong other than her mom finding out and me being grounded for the rest of my life? Well, the best friend that was having the sleepover was a twin. Specifically, she was a twin to the boy that I thought the world of. After downing an entire bottle, about yay tall and about yay wide, of straight vodka and a beer all by myself, I was more than out of it. I wasn't competent enough to even sit up by myself. They had to hold me up. My friend's twin, my ex-boyfriend, came in and told me that he wanted to take me somewhere private. I can remember stumbling down the hallway and running into every wall around me and using my little vape as a makeshift flashlight. Long story short, I'd gone into the bathroom that night with my virginity, which meant the world to me as a Christian, and was left in there soon after, sobbing over my morals and beliefs forcefully being taken away from me. It soon turned into a whole problem at school, with someone publicly calling the boy out as a rapist, and soon after that, I got suspended for the vaping. Well, I moved to Newark my senior year and hoped that it would be a chance for me to restart myself and find purpose and meaning again after completely losing myself. About halfway through the school year, history started repeating itself, and I started vaping to lose weight yet again, and I met yet another boy. Well, this boy told me he loved me and that I meant the world to him, and it seemed like he really did, until he wanted sex, which I was not comfortable with, and he threatened to leave me and tell everyone what I was like if I didn't. So, me with abandonment and love issues did, and I left that night crying as well and feeling more pieces of myself breaking away. A couple months later, one of my friends wanted me to smoke weed with them, and I told them I couldn't because I was absolutely terrified that my father would find out from an hour and a half away. Well, long story short, they convinced me to do it, and I sat in the Walmart parking lot, paranoid and freaking out that every person who walked by was a spy sent by my dad. Not long after that, I got invited to smoke again, and I enjoyed it that time. I wasn't paranoid. So I liked the feeling of not being broken because I was so calm and high. So I did it again with one of my friends. This friend was a boy. See the pattern? I went home feeling completely broken and defeated after he sexually assaulted me. I decided that I couldn't talk to anyone about it because I would get called a whore or a druggie or an alcoholic, all three of which was used in one sentence describing me by one of my family members. I figured God didn't want broken goods anymore, so I found some alcohol stashed away in the back of my mom's kitchen cabinet. I cut my wrists, which I had done many times before throughout high school, and I decided that I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want my mom finding a mess everywhere, so I tended to my wrist and decided that I would take a bunch of pills to go to sleep. Well, I couldn't even do that right, because I woke up the next morning throwing up but very much alive. After that, I cut myself again and swallowed pills a few more times, never being successful. I wanted to find meaning, but I stupidly thought that God didn't want me anymore, so that wasn't an option. So I started talking to the kids at my study table at school that liked to read tarot cards. I started asking them about it and started asking questions about being Wiccan and if it gave them purpose. So I started going down the road of witchcraft. I declared myself as a witch and casted little spells and prayed to other deities that I was told would save my life and help me find purpose. After a while, it started to scare me, and thankfully, COVID happened. But after about a month of all of that, I started getting super sick all the time, and I was even more suicidal because of the witchcraft. And I started thinking of surefire ways to end my life that couldn't fail like the pills had. Well, again, COVID happened. So thankfully, COVID happening was actually a good thing for me and took me away from the witchcraft at my school, which made me lose interest in a sense. But the social distancing and not being allowed to leave the house really still had me messed up and made everything worse. I ended up staying in Galleon for a few weeks to help my grandma while my grandpa was out of town for a car show or something per usual, and was about to return home when my grandma made me go to the first Voices of Victory being held at the church. I did not want to go to some Jesus thing. I wanted to go smoke weed and go back home. Well, that night, God told me that the man standing on the stage singing was my husband. Well, we were both a mess, but we knew that God had said that we were supposed to get married, so we got married. He already smoked weed, I drank, smoked, and vaped, and we did it together for a while. Even being in church and on the worship team, we were a match that certainly was not lifting each other up spiritually. Well, I got pregnant with Peyton, and I knew that I couldn't be doing any of that to harm my child, so I stopped. Well, Keegan didn't stop right away, and it certainly wasn't easy to get him to do so. But during that time, I knew that I wasn't strong enough to go through pregnancy, deal with a husband with an addiction, and deal with debt and a million other things as a teenage mom. So I got on my knees and I cried out to God. And when I say I cried out to God, I mean I hideously ugly sobbed. He showed me all of the times that I had forsaken him, but that he never left me through any of it. He held my hand through it all. I asked him why he'd let me go through all of that, and he showed me that it was so that I could grow and help others through similar things. So that I could use what I had been through to help people feel like no matter what they dabbled in or how far they decided to run or how much they yelled at God or cursed at him, that he would always be there for them, waiting for them to break so that he could do something with the broken pieces. Since then, Keegan and I have been through an unimaginable amount of hurt and pain in our marriage, and even almost went through a divorce, as he talked about. But God brought us through it all, and he healed it all completely. But I fully believe that God brought me through all of this so that I could stand here tonight and publicly finally give glory to him for saving my life and bringing me out on the other side, because he is what my life story should be about.